A Boeing 747 was fully ready for takeoff on the runway. In dense fog, the pilot pushed the thrust levers forward, turned on the headlights, and the aircraft had now passed takeoff speed. This was a speed from which turning back is almost impossible. But at that very moment, a shadow began to appear in the fog. That shadow was another Boeing 747,
and that shadow
just a
was
few meters
another
away
Boeing
on the same runway,
747,
facing the opposite
just
direction.
a few.
What happened next is difficult even to imagine. The question is, how did the situation reach this point? What was the air traffic controller doing? And what small mistake caused the most dangerous accident in aviation history? This tragic incident took place in Spain's Canary Islands, which the world now knows as the Tenerife Airport disaster. Welcome back to the videos. This story begins a day before the accident, on March 26, 1977, when Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, took off from Los Angeles Airport. It was scheduled to land in New York to pick up some passengers, and then its final destination was across the ocean, the city of Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. It was a chartered flight and completely booked, mostly with elderly passengers who planned to enjoy a cruise ship vacation in Las Palmas. Las Palmas is the capital of the Canary Islands, located about 100 kilometers off the coast of Morocco, and it is Spain's southernmost region. The place is famous worldwide for its tropical climate. But in 1977, behind the beautiful islands of the Canary Islands, there was hidden political tension. There was a group called the MPAIAC, which was demanding independence of the Canary Islands from Spain. For its campaign, this group often resorted to violence. And it was one such violent event that triggered the beginning of this tragic accident. Pan Am Flight 1736 picked up passengers from New York's JFK International Airport and departed toward Las Palmas Island. Its cabin crew included 56-year-old Captain Victor Grubbs, 39-year-old First Officer Robert Bragg, 46-year-old flight engineer George Warnes, along with 13 flight attendants and 380 passengers. These were the details of Pan Am Flight 1736, which was now cruising over the Atlantic Ocean. Now let's talk about the second aircraft that was about to become a victim of this disaster from the Netherlands. At Amsterdam City Airport, KLM Flight 4805 was getting ready. A Boeing 747 bound for Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. In its cockpit were Captain Jacob, 50, First Officer, Class 42, and Flight Engineer William, 48, with 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers on board. KLM Flight 4805 took off from Amsterdam International Airport. Both aircraft headed for Las Palmas. Meanwhile, at Las Palmas Airport, two men placed a bag outside a flower shop and disappeared. The bag contained a bomb with a countdown timer. At 1 p.m., a phone call reached Las Palmas Airport reception. The caller, linked to the MPAIAC group, warned of bomb blasts at Las Palmas Airport within 15 minutes. Airport staff immediately sprang into action, evacuating the entire Las Palmas Airport before 15 minutes passed. Their rush turned to fear when, exactly 15 minutes later, a powerful explosion occurred. A large portion of the terminal roof collapsed. All activities at Las Palmas Airport were suspended. Flights were cancelled, and incoming flights were diverted. KLM Flight 4805 neared Las Palmas. Air traffic control informed them of the explosion, diverting them to Tenerife Island, 110 kilometers away. After an additional 25-minute flight, the KLM captain landed on runway 30 of Tenerife Airport at 1:38 p.m. Pan Am Flight 1736 from New York also diverted to Tenerife. Almost all flights were now being diverted to Tenerife Airport. This was the nearest airport. Now, the crowd at Tenerife Airport was increasing rapidly. Tenerife Airport, in a mountainous area, is a small airport, very close to the Atlantic Ocean. Its elevation, it is around 2,000 feet. This area is surrounded by high mountains. When moist winds from the Atlantic hit the mountains, they rise, cool down, and turn into clouds. This sudden weather change is normal here. When Pan Am and KLM landed, visibility was perfectly fine. But suddenly, due to the clouds, visibility decreased. Over the runway, it dropped to 300 meters. The very next moment, everything appeared clear up to 2 kilometers away, then back to dense fog. It was uncertain how long they'd stay. Passengers were deboarded to freshen up after their long flight. KLM Flight 4805, returning to Amsterdam, decided to refuel here to save time when Las Palmas reopened. They had just started refueling when news arrived. Las Palmas Airport had reopened. Both flights reboarded passengers. But KLM's refueling blocked the taxiway. Tenerife is a small airport. 1 runway, 1 taxiway, and 1 apron where the terminal is built. So much traffic, especially Boeing jumbo jets, was quite abnormal for this airport. Because of KLM's refueling, Pan Am couldn't leave the terminal and move onto the runway. They were told to wait until KLM's refueling was completed. At 4:45, it finished. The KLM captain began preparing to move from the taxiway. The apron was filled, blocking the taxiway. The controller instructed KLM pilots, parked on the west side, to taxi onto the runway, proceed to the extreme east end, take a 180 turn, and prepare for takeoff. When KLM 4805 started taxiing, the controller instructed Pan Am to follow KLM on the runway, but to exit onto the taxiway from the C3 exit, because KLM 4805 had to take off from the same runway. The visibility was very low, and as minutes passed, the situation at Tenerife Airport worsened significantly. KLM 4805 taxied across the entire runway, making a 180-degree turn. It then positioned itself at the eastern end, ready for takeoff. Meanwhile, Pan Am 736 also began taxiing on the same runway. Due to the dense fog, its pilots could see exits C1 and C2. However, they missed exit C3, which led back towards the apron. Perhaps this was why C3 was not visible to them. Additionally, Tenerife Airport lacked proper signage for runway exits. As Pan Am 736 was crossing C2, KLM 4805's captain requested takeoff clearance. From this point, a series of critical confusions began. Both aircraft were invisible to the control tower due to the fog. The airport also lacked a ground radar system. The tower began instructing KLM on their route after takeoff. However, this message did not include actual takeoff clearance. KLM's captain, however, misinterpreted this as takeoff clearance. He replied, "We are taking off." It remains unclear if he said, "We are taking off," or "We are at takeoff." The control tower initially responded, "Okay," but seconds later, they clarified, "Prepare for takeoff. I will call you." This crucial message explicitly stated not to take off yet. However, it didn't reach KLM's cockpit effectively. At that moment, Pan Am 736's pilots, near C3 on the runway, transmitted a message. They stated, "We are still on the runway." Both the tower's standby message to KLM and Pan Am's transmission were sent simultaneously. This resulted in only a distorted sound in KLM's cockpit. Pan Am 736, having unknowingly crossed C3, was then instructed by the tower. They were told to report when clear of the runway. Pan Am's pilots acknowledged with OK. By this time, KLM 4805's captain had already advanced the thrust levers. He believed he had received clearance for takeoff. It was then that KLM's flight engineer relayed Pan Am's message to the control tower. The message was heard, and they immediately informed the captain that they were still on the runway. Perhaps the captain misunderstood something in the noise, simply said, "Oh yes," and continued the takeoff. Because of the fog, they could see only about 300 meters ahead. Suddenly, the Pan Am pilots saw headlights on the runway through the fog. At first, they thought that perhaps the KLM flight was stationary. But in the very next moment, they realized it was rapidly coming toward them. They immediately tried to turn the aircraft, but it was already too late. KLM's right engine tore through the first-class section of the Pan Am aircraft. The landing gear also broke, and the plane crashed onto the runway about 150 meters away, catching fire. Because the fuel tanks were full, the 248 passengers on board were killed instantly. The passengers of the Pan Am flight did not even get a chance to understand what had happened. The first-class passengers died immediately, but many economy-class passengers got a chance to escape through a hole in the roof. Several jumped from a height of 20 feet to save their lives. Out of the 396 passengers on the Pan Am flight, only 61 survived. Perhaps more people could have survived, but because of the fog, the control tower learned about the accident after some delay. That too happened when another aircraft parked on the apron saw flames on the runway and informed the control tower. Rescue vehicles also could not move quickly because of the fog. In this disaster, a total of 583 people lost their lives within moments. During the investigation, the cockpit voice recorders of both aircraft were examined. From there, all the details were obtained that you have seen in this video. The investigation team concluded that several events led to this disaster. First, the bomb blast at Las Palmas, then KLM refueling completely at Tenerife Airport and blocking the taxiway. If they had not done so, Pan Am Flight 736 would have taken off earlier. After that, visibility suddenly dropped and Pan Am missed the C3 exit. However, the investigation team ultimately held the crew of KLM Flight 4805 responsible for the accident, because, in the end, they continued the takeoff without permission. Even though the flight engineer had warned the captain just 5 seconds earlier. Following the accident, many significant changes were implemented across the aerospace industry. New protocols were established for call signs, and their operational rules were thoroughly revised. Mandatory radar systems were installed at all airports, enhancing air traffic control capabilities. Additionally, holding points and clear indicators on runways became essential safety requirements. Today, Tenerife Island is home to 2 distinct airports, serving its unique geographical needs. The northern airport is the site where the historic accident tragically occurred. However, a new airport has been constructed in the south, designed with a lower elevation. This strategic placement ensures that visibility is rarely affected by clouds or dense fog. We hope you found this video informative and will consider liking and sharing it widely. Thank you sincerely for your love-filled comments. We appreciate your support. Join us again for our next wonderful video, exploring more fascinating topics.